Hi everyone, welcome to Business Community's Northern Ireland Environmental Benchmarking Survey How-To webinar. My name's Catherine Campbell and I'm the Environmental Programme Manager at Business Community and I manage the survey. And I'm delighted to introduce Adrian McNeely, who is the HSE Manager from Phoenix Energy, one of the top performers from the 2025 survey. Adrian's going to take you through Phoenix Energy's sustainability journey and how the survey has helped them with this. So this webinar will provide you with a general overview along with some guidance and tips on completing the survey, and I will briefly go through some of the changes that we've made to the survey questions in 26 as well. If you have any questions as we go along, please use the Q&A function or the chat function, and we'll pick these up at the end during the Q&A session. You can also email these into us at environment@bitcni.org.uk and we will answer your questions after the webinar. So the survey is a free online self-disclosure exercise, and this is the 28th year of the survey this year. So why take part in the environmental benchmarking survey? The survey process enables organisations to examine their performance and to drive continuous improvement. You can see on screen some of the key reasons why organisations participate. So you can set effective targets for improvement, self-assess your operational performance. It helps engage stakeholders. Data gathered through the survey can actually help support decision making as well. It can strengthen your organisational identity, enhance company reputation, and it's also a unique and valuable opportunity to learn from others in your sector and other sectors as well on what they're doing to improve their environmental impacts. So some key dates. So the survey is now open for participation. 12th of June is your deadline for informing business and the community of your Bring a Business nomination. So what's the Bring a Business nomination? So it's the Bring a Business initiative. It asks survey participants to encourage one of their key suppliers or contractors to take part in the 2026 survey. This is an effort to challenge participants to work along with their supply chains and to improve their environmental impacts, and an opportunity to gain bonus points as well. So for the bonus points, you can get 1.5 bonus marks for introducing another business to the survey, and you can get 3 bonus marks for helping a business to complete their survey as well. So this will be on top of your overall score. So it might get you just over the line. So say you're sitting on silver and you need 2 points to get to gold, that could push you up to gold. So it's really important that you try and get this Bring a Business. It's very rewarding. I would also like to emphasize that you will only receive these bonus points should your referred business successfully submit their survey as a first-time participant. So no points will be awarded for a referral only, they must submit the survey. The survey closes on Thursday the 25th of June, and the results of the survey will be announced at our Environment and Climate Report launch event. So this date is provisionally set for 24th of November. However, if anything changes, we will be sure to let you know. Then there's the nominations for the George Dawson Award. They close on Friday the 9th of October. The George Dawson Award is an annual recognition award that celebrates an individual's contribution to improving the environmental performance of their organisation. So colleagues can nominate someone from within their own organisation. The nomination form can be found on the survey webpage on the Business and Community website. So small business survey, it's open to organisations with less than 50 employees. It's a shortened version of the main survey, and there is an award for top performing small business as well. I want to point out here that just because you're classed as a small business, it's not mandatory to complete the small business survey, and you can select no and complete the full survey should you wish. If you think that you can answer those questions that are normally hidden, absolutely fine, you can answer the full survey. It's just completely up to you. So scoring for the benchmarking survey. So organisations taking part are awarded platinum, gold, silver, bronze and green. And you can see the percentage rankings there on the screen. So the higher the overall score, the higher the organisations are going to rank. All participants receive a certificate regardless of your level, and you can use the survey branding on their company's materials as well. Your individual score is not made public, just where your organisation ranked. So that's just in terms of platinum, gold, etc. No one will see your individual scores. Participants completing the small business survey, they can achieve a top level of silver. So sections in the survey, there's three main sections in the survey. So section 1 is your corporate strategy. So this is exploring if environmental issues are considered in the strategic decision-making process, then how senior leaders are involved, and finally, we explore how you engage stakeholders. So this is your employees, your customers, and your supply chain on all environmental issues. So then we've got section 2, this is your environmental management section. So this focuses on a formal environmental management system and the different elements of that. So for example, an environmental policy, which you'll find in question 4. If you respond, yes, we have an environmental management system in place that has been externally certified to ISO 14001, etc., you'll be asked which standard the organisation is certified to and the date it was last certified. Because then you've clicked that you have been externally verified, you'll be automatically receive full marks for section 2 and you'll be taken to section 3. And then section 3 is your environmental performance. So this section is the largest section in the survey and it is the most time consuming part to complete. The questions in this section have been grouped under key environmental impacts. It goes from the likes of climate and carbon, circular economy and resource use. You've got your additional impacts, nature and biodiversity, and environmental performance and improvement. So it's a big range of things that you would go through. Then we've got some changes to the survey in 2026. So we've made some slight changes to the wording of some questions this year in several sections. Some existing multiple choice questions now have additional answers to provide a clear distinction between different levels of organisational activity. We have added a new unscored question to the nature and biodiversity section. So this question is on nature positive actions. So that will allow you to talk about some actions that you're taking within your company. The additional impact question, you might recall that biodiversity was on this as an option. So this is no longer an option for question 13. This is now covered and scored as under a separate section in question 13, so the biodiversity section. However, don't worry, a new biodiversity option has been added within the environmental performance and improvement question. So most people might know that as the data question. So this still allows you to report your data on nature and biodiversity if you wish. And then finally, the platform has been reviewed and updated to make it even easier to navigate and more user-friendly for this year's survey. So that's the main changes in the survey this year. If anything else that you need help with, just come and chat to me. That's no problem at all. And then just a few tips on navigating through the survey platform. So you will receive a unique link to complete the survey. It is one link per company. So if 2 or more people are completing the survey, you're going to use the same link, and it's fine to use the same link. If you haven't received this link yet, please do get in touch and I'll send that over to you as soon as possible. All questions have the question help button, which can be found directly under the question on the survey platform. And it looks like this blue icon on the screen. And it's when you hover over it and click on it, it will bring up more guidance on the question. Just remember that you don't need to complete the survey all at once. It is a big survey. It'll take up a lot of your time if you do it all at once. So you can save as you go and return to your survey at any time before submitting. That being said, please do remember to save your survey using the Resume Later button which can be seen on the screen, or by pressing the bottom right-hand corner, the next, before exiting the survey. So if you exit the survey without pressing either resume later at the top right-hand or next at the bottom right-hand, that won't save the data that you've inputted on that particular page. So if you just press X out of your browser, it won't save. So please be mindful when you're leaving to save it first, because we can't get that back either if you haven't saved it. And I'd also like to point out that you can navigate directly to any question using the question index button at the top right hand of the survey screen. So there's no need to skip through every page. Maybe if you're on question 16, you can go up to the top right hand corner and navigate down, and you can see that on the screen there. And then finally, some tips for completing the survey. So leave plenty of time. The full survey has 17 questions to complete, and a lot of those questions have A, B, C, D. So it is important not to leave it all to the last minute, or it might cause a lot of stress trying to get it over the line. Don't miss out on the extra bonus points available for the Bring a Business initiative. You can normalise data wherever possible, please. For the additional impact question, so that's your question 14, focus on the most significant additional impact to your organisation when you're answering this. And of course, if you have any queries or issues completing the survey at all, please contact our team at environment@bitcni.org.uk. I'm always on hand to help, and I have no problem jumping on a call if you want to ask a question about any of the survey. I'm always here to help. So now I'm really excited to introduce Adrian McNeely from Phoenix Energy. Phoenix Energy is a top performer in the survey, and I'm delighted that today they're going to share their sustainability journey with us and give us an insight on how completing the survey has helped guide and demonstrate their environmental achievements. So over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Catherine. Good morning, everybody. First off, I just want to say on behalf of Phoenix, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and have a chat with yourselves to, I suppose, to demonstrate, the survey for ourselves and how we've been completing it and how it links into our overall journey, because we've been on a journey now for a number of years. So, Catherine, if you could do me a favour, I'm going to share my screen, just make sure that it goes through for me, hopefully.
Yeah, no problem.
Are we good?
That's us. That's us.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sure people normally call us Phoenix Gas, Phoenix Natural Gas, or whatever it was. But we rebranded there a couple of years ago, which I'll be talking about as we go through the slides. We're now called Phoenix Energy itself. Okay, so who are Phoenix Energy? We're awarded a license by the utility regulator as a gas distribution network operator. The business started back in 1986. If you Google the word Phoenix, it's something rising out of the ashes. So in the early days, we acquired the old Belfast Towns gas network and loose fit inserted a lot of new plastic polyethylene gas mains inside it. So it's a new business, or it's a new venture rising out of the ashes of an old one. But you can see that on the map on screen, we go as far out as Whitehead and all the way down to County Down in Newcastle. Back in 2016, we started Gas East, which has taken gas to 13 new towns, which basically means our licence area covers about 50% of the population of Northern Ireland. So it's Greater Belfast, Larne and down in the East Down areas. We've over 4,000 kilometres of pipeline underground of various diameters and pressures, and about 270,000 connections off the tail end of it. Phoenix as a business was started back in 86, and technically we're 30 years old this year. So I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who were grumbling on various bits and pieces in relation to the network reinforcement projects that we had to do over this last couple of years in the Shore Road or the Upper Newtownards Road and out in the Bangor direction. I would like to say the large parts of our network construction have been completed now, and we're moving more into rehabilitation, maintenance, asset work, as well as new connections and so on and so forth. So I suppose just looking at our journey in a sustainable sense, same as any business, it very much comes from the tone from the top. I'm whatever scale of management I am within the business, but it has to come from the top. So for us, our responsibilities, and prides itself on being a responsible business, and a lot of the things that we've been doing over this last number of years have been complemented by participation in the benchmarking survey. So the likes of our strategies, again, as Catherine mentioned a second ago about strategic direction and leadership and so on and so forth. You'll see examples on screen there of corporate social responsibility, environmental policies, sustainability policies, as well as a biodiversity strategy. So the likes of these documents, we're reviewing them annually, and I report into the board every 6 months in relation to performance, where we are. We measure everything. Because again, that drives what we're doing on areas where we could maybe do new things. And even the conversation I was having with Catherine before the seminar started, it's one of them scenarios that you box off something and you start something new and it's working well, and then you're going, what's next? What can we do? What's continuous improvement? Which again links into your environmental or health and safety management systems as well, in the scenarios of continuous improvement. So like I say, it's signed off by the senior directors and the chief executives, and then it manifests itself down through all the various layers of the business. And I suppose one of the core means by which we do that would be our responsible business approach, and we use the mnemonic LIFE. And these would be the pillars on which basically everything within the business has been built. The first one is leadership in the marketplace, so it's acting with integrity, maintaining the highest standards of governance, etc. Investing in our people. If you haven't got people to do it and believe in it and embrace it and move forward with it, then it makes life a lot harder. So, and a lot of businesses will say, one of your best assets, if not your best asset, is your people. So it's important as one of our pillars is to make sure we're continuously investing in our people. As part of responsible business, then, like I said, because of the scale of the network and the scale of our operations and our impact on the community, or interaction, with the community, 270,000 connections or customers connected to the network, digging up roads and laying new mains or doing rehabilitation works, then it's our environmental responsibility to make sure we're doing it right, as well as obviously interacting with the community that we're serving across our licensed area. And these have been sort of enshrined within the business as part of our core operating way of doing things, as being the right way of doing things since the beginning back in 1986. So in terms of our survey journey, Phoenix is one of the small number of businesses in Northern Ireland who've been doing the survey for over 25 years. And it's very much enshrined in how we operate. A lot of our KPIs, our measurements, various bits and pieces, examples you can see on screen, we will report them publicly through our responsible business report. Unfortunately, we're seeing the slide from 2024. We're currently devising the 2025 responsible business report. But again, as I mentioned there, we try and measure as many things, because these show where we can make performances, where we can change things, where we can maybe engage with external stakeholders, supply chains, etc., to try and make it better, to try and have less impact, to try and bring better benefits for, again, the users of our network. So, even some examples of obtaining renewable electricity, recycling 26,000 tonnes of material by divertment from landfill from our construction operations. If you consider your standard 8-wheeler grab lorry carries about 16 tonne, take 26,000 and divide that by 16. That's a lot of lorry loads. And most grab lorries operate at about 5 or 6 miles to the gallon. So if we can do away with that by doing alternative ways of constructing and maintaining our network, then it's less of an impact and less virgin aggregate that we're going to have to use to complete our construction works. So I suppose within the environmental section of our responsible business approach, there's three key aspects that we sort of stand over and use. The first one would be responsibility on product. The actual, what is it that we're building? What is it we're maintaining? Phoenix don't sell gas, so some people will be like, "Oh, you Phoenix boys are putting your prices up." We don't actually sell the gas. We own the network, but you buy your gas from external parties. So we maintain and construct the network itself, which leads us on to the responsibility in our operations and how we actually operate when we're doing these things, which then again obviously then leads on to our responsibilities within our communities itself. So even if you consider the actual fuel itself, there are well-recorded significant environmental benefits. If you compare natural gas, which yes is still a variation of a fossil fuel, but in comparison to coal and oil, households that will switch across, then it can have a massive impact on carbon emissions, etc. And well, we sort of made that understandable is by comparing the amount of emissions by people converting from solid fuel, the likes of a coal-fired heating system, to a gas system. We can convert the emissions saved to taking cars off the road. So, there's millions of tons worth of emissions not being generated. There's millions of cars were taken off the road each year because of this reduction in comparison to how it would have been back in the 70s, 80s and early 90s, where, in a morning across Belfast or in a cold evening, you would have seen all these wee smoking chimneys across the city, whereas now they're using gas instead. But looking bigger picture, which again links back into our strategy, our business strategy, our core strategy, driven by the board, is responsibility in the product moving forward. So the likes of Pathway to Net Zero, every man and his dog in business nowadays thinking about carbon zero, climate change, pathways to net zero, etc., etc. So again, we're sort of at the forefront of trying to make that happen through the likes of biomethane, because of the agricultural sector in Northern Ireland, because of the expanse of the agricultural sector. There's more than enough available resource for anaerobic digesters who currently would be producing electricity that can also diversify into producing gas and injecting that into our network. Which again, it means we as a province, as an area, could be self-sufficient. So when you consider global events, it means then that possible volatility can be reduced in pricing structure because we have our own homegrown resource. So again, our pathway, we Phoenix, there's distribution companies and transmission companies. So distribution are Phoenix Connects, or Firmus as it used to be called, Evolve, which is out in the west. We're distribution, so we're the ones that are laying the gas mains in the city streets around our licence area. Mutual and Gas Networks Ireland, they're the networks that feed us. So their transmission, they're what bring the gas into Northern Ireland itself. But we all join together to have this joint idea or this goal, vision for the future in our quest for Pathway to net zero on renewable gases, and even smaller trials that we're doing at the minute for hybrid heat pumps in alliance with high efficiency gas boilers. The trials are underway at the minute, and it's proven some of the results are coming back are fantastic. So as part of our operations, it's a case of, like I mentioned earlier on, we measure everything from paper in the office, water in the office, spoil generated on site, cardboard that our fittings come in, single-use plastics, etc., etc., etc. And we're constantly looking at ways in which we can make it better, work with external stakeholders, supply chain, etc. So that can be down with the likes of fleet management, trying to electrify the fleet where possible. We're not a blue light service, but if somebody has a smell of gas in their property or outside their property, we have a duty to get somebody on site within 60 minutes. So we need to make sure that we have confidence in an EV system at 3 o'clock in the morning in January before we send an engineer out. So we're dipping our toe in that regard, but again, that will have a big impact on overall company emissions. Business delivery, again, that's through our principal contractor, and you can see some examples there on the right hand side, which would be our partnership working as well. So obviously where we can, for this last 15, 20 years, we prioritize trenchless technologies. So you can see the photograph in the bottom right there, which would be a horizontal directional drill. So in a lot of urban areas, in our licence areas, housing developments and estates and so on, if the ground is suitable, we will horizontally directionally drill it. And it basically means you open one excavation at one point, you go a couple of 100 metres up the road, you open another excavation and you drill underground between them 2 points, instead of having to open cut that whole area, lift out all that material, take that off site, bring in brand new virgin aggregate and then backfill it. You see top right, that's our most recent addition to how we operate. It's called a vacuum excavator. And I remember somebody calling it a Nunu. I'm probably showing my age from the Teletubbies years ago, but it does what it says in the tin. You can see the guy there standing. It's a big, massive vacuum. And what we found with that is that can reduce the amount of actual aggregate that we need to take out of the ground, the amount of excavation work that we need to take out of the ground, which mean, again, that we're less journeys for grab lorries going to landfill sites to have to get rid of the material, and then less trips to the quarry to get new virgin aggregate to backfill it. The wee photograph in the middle there with the guy holding the long silver thing, that's called a Vermeer thrust bore mole. So again, in a domestic setting, again, ground permissions permitting, we can open a hole at the edge of the driveway and open a hole farther up the driveway and mole underground between them 2 points, which basically means it's trenchless. So you're diverting waste by not generating it in the first place. So again, there are sort of key things in how we work with our construction partner, that these would be our go-to first off. And then obviously, if we have to try and figure out some other way of doing business for whatever rationale, then we'll do that. But in that particular case, that's allowed us then to set targets that we're reducing the amount of material, targets that are realistic. It wouldn't stand over that between a period we can look to start reducing the amount of material that we're using and having to dispose of in landfill sites, which again, linking that back into the survey itself, there's large sections on environmental improvement, environmental performance, and how you're actually operating. And for me personally, it's been a bit of a passion, because for us, for all the other various elements that we do within the business, the likes of the waste that we put on lorries to take to a landfill site is the elephant in the room. So if we can get that down as low as possible, then I'll be a very happy bunny, to be fair. Responsibility in our operations is also employee support, which we'll talk about in a wee second in relation to the likes of volunteering and various bits and pieces, because again, that links into investing in our staff, which allows them to, I suppose, for want of better words, whenever you consider the percentage of your life that you spend in a working environment, it's nice to say that you go to work and, you know, as the saying used to be, if you enjoy your work, you never work a day in your life. So if we can help support employees to do that, then as a responsible business, then all the better it will be. And one of the elements that comes off the back of that is Phoenix set up a number of years ago now our volunteering policy. So every employee gets time out of the office where they can go, obviously role permitting and time permitting, to go out and do volunteering activities. That also covers if they want to go out and do community engagement, like maybe working in a charity shop or something along them lines. But in this context, I'm looking at the likes of the environmental volunteering and conservation volunteers. We set up a partnership with them 5 or 6 years ago, a formal partnership, and that has been fantastic in facilitating our biodiversity, sustainability and conservation journey moving forward. So you can see a few examples of some of the guys that have been out at various times. It could be planting things, planting new things, maintaining things, building. I was out not that long ago building raised beds. So there's plenty of scope for people to get out, because you know the benefit of being outside in nature is more and more, especially in the context of mental health nowadays, that it does have big benefits for people. But then also along with that is raising awareness with staff as well as a responsible business. So we have our biodiversity strategy, and elements of that will be biodiversity awareness training. So every new employee that joins the business, they, as part of their induction, they go through biodiversity awareness training that I deliver, I created, and I'm able to then, I suppose, translate that out to how that manifests itself across our business. And then obviously we have our refresher periods then where everybody gets brought back in again as an update to show where we are, what we're doing, what we're going to be moving forward towards, and trying to link that into like the local picture as well as obviously, you know, strategies and possibly global pictures as well. But it also gives a lot of information, because some people like being outside, some people have gardens at home, some people want to maybe interact with other outside organisations in their spare time. So we give them pointers and signpost them where they can go to engage with these other parties should they wish to want to volunteer for themselves in their own spare time. I don't think I've ever gone to a primary school. I used to do a lot of primary school safety presentations, and I don't think I've ever gone to a primary school where somewhere within the grounds of the primary school they don't have some sort of wee garden set up. So as part of our biodiversity and sustainability, we set up what's called the Phoenix Plant Protector Workshops, and we basically go out to primary schools and educate them as best possible, start them young. You know, some classrooms you go into, the wee seat tray sitting in the corner of the window, getting the sunshine while they're in the classroom. So, you know, it's providing the materials, providing the resources, providing them in a friendly way that they can interact and want to buy into it. And, you know, whenever you talk to them, you can see the pride in their faces because they're doing something tangible that they think, you know, it's actually a good thing. And it's also, you know, I think one of the worst things being at one of these sessions before, when you would ask, you know, where's milk come from? And a youngster put his hand up and says, milk comes from Tesco's. You know, obviously it does, but by the same token, it's that building that knowledge of where things come from, how things are grown, our role in trying to make sure that we look after things as best possible as custodians before we move on. I suppose with the TCV, and probably, like I say, the biggest thing for ourselves was back in 2021 with the conservation volunteers. Like I mentioned earlier on, I present to the board every 6 months on strategies and performance and various bits and pieces, as well as our monthly reports, our business performance reports, so they can see at board level every month how we're performing. And at that stage, I, rightly or wrongly, you always see a lot of photographs of somebody standing with a bright shiny spade and a nice brand new pair of wellies planting one tree. And I thought that's brilliant as a point, but I think there needs to be something a wee bit more tangible. So at that stage, we were doing 8,000 connections per year. So my challenge at the time was to plant one tree for every connection. And the idea caught traction. So back in 2021 with the conservation volunteers, we got our first 8,000 trees planted. And then every year since that, we planted another 8,000 trees. And as of the end of the planting season there this month, we hit 40,000 trees. So it's 8,000 trees a year over 10 years. And it's a case then of trying, with the conservation volunteers, to try and find locations to be able to do this. But again, for me, I think it's a fantastic idea because it helps people go out and volunteer to get out of the office to do something tangible that in X amount of years you can go back and say, we planted them trees. You can see them starting to grow, as well as obviously, the overarching statistic of Northern Ireland being one of the least wooded parts of the UK. So in my eyes, it's a win-win. One thing, suppose I'm coming near the end of things now, but one thing we also did as a business was we set up the Phoenix Community and Biodiversity Fund. Essentially, what that allowed us to do was to interact with local organisations, community groups, biodiversity groups, churches, sports groups, etc., because we have this desire to want to interact, to try and plant trees, to try and do environmental projects. And you can see a couple of photographs there of areas where we have sponsored them, where they can apply to the community fund for a grant. So again, anybody that's on the call, the applications are open now. If you go on the Phoenix website and search up the community fund or the biodiversity fund, you can fill out an application and you can get whatever hundreds of pounds towards it. And again, it's our way. I think last year we had 15 grants allocated out to local groups. And again, it allows them to facilitate the resources to be able to do the projects that they want. And again, that promotes ownership on their side because they have a vested interest in making sure that it works. And that has been down to raised beds or picnic benches or apple trees or willow trees or whatever each individual application is assessed on its own individual merit. But again, for me, I think it's a great idea because it allows us then to interact with local communities. And again, these are the guys that maybe have gas connected in their properties. So again, it's as a responsible business, it's us trying to do our part, I suppose, in a way to give a wee bit back. So it's probably a bit of a whistle-stop belt-fed presentation with a short space of time to cover it off. But hopefully you can maybe see in relation to strategy and performance and the measures that we've taken. And sometimes it can be quite frustrating that you think you're not making a lot of progress, but even moving slowly is still making progress. So, and again, like I mentioned from at the beginning, I find personally a lot of times that there's maybe a bit of personal frustration because you can't see the forest for the trees. But if you actually take that step back and look and say to yourself, give yourself the credit to say, look what we've done. That's fantastic. But here's what are we going to do next to keep this, once you get the momentum going and you get the traction and you get the buy-in and you keep on going. And hopefully then, you just suppose make it better for everybody. So that covers me. Again, thank you, Catherine, and Business in the Community for the opportunity to come and present to yourselves. Hopefully, there's maybe a few tidbits of information that people might want to take from it.
Thank you for attending, Adrian. Thank you so much. That was great. And I just want to say to everybody that the deadline you can see on the screen here now is the 25th of June for the survey. And if you have any questions at all, or if you've not got your token link, please let me know, and I will get that sent over to you straight away.